Well, and traders, how's it going? How we doing? Thanks for joining me for the show. Looking at Chainlink, Chainlink, on that ticker. And so the last time we actually covered Chainlink here over on the channel was on my last video, which actually happened about the end of September, right before we had a very nice breakout talking about whether or not we'll actually be ready for a big rally. And you can see we're definitely getting that right now on this current move. So a lot of great things that we do have to talk about in the show today. So if you are ready for an update on Chainlink, and you do appreciate this kind of content, would appreciate hitting the thumbs up, like, and subscribe so you can stay updated on all of these special type of content like this on Link and other awesome cryptos. So for starters, one of the things that we were talking about in the previous video was just on the monthly chart, how we were relying on this overall 50-period exponential moving average that we were sitting below for almost essentially about a year, since May of 2022. And so that's why recently on the month of October, when we actually got this print of a very nice bullish candle on top of the 50. So even if we look at a percentage gain on top of the 50-period EMA here, we're looking at a very nice candle over 33%, about 35% here just on the month of October. And then obviously now with the current month of November, we're looking at another nice big gain as well, up 29, almost 30% just on the week that we have been into the month so far. And so despite the fact we have seen a very nice breakout on top of this big, long, crucial point of resistance that was the 50-period EMA, we do have a big monthly point of resistance as well as another point of previous support. So we're looking at two big points of resistance up overhead. So if we can look left, you can see big points of monthly support. Looking left, again, you can see big levels of support on the bounce on these monthlies. And then also before hitting our all-time high right now, big points of monthly resistance. So those are coming in right around the $15 level, 15.10, and then 15.59.7, so effectively 15.60. And then effectively, once we do actually get above those levels as well, next overhead resistance point is going to come in at 17.16.6. And then up overhead above that will be right about 19.50 or so. So as you can see, plenty of upside overhead resistances, and if we actually turn on VPVR, volume profile visible range, you can see that big points of mass already below us. So we know that these resistance points up overhead aren't necessarily going to be as strong as what they would potentially be when we were down for the last year, when we were still stuck below the 50 EMA. Now, so that's definitely not to say still that we're not going to see resistance at all. And personally, I'm still thinking that this rally is not necessarily going to go forever. And we probably will see a little bit more of a correction as we do approach towards the end of the year and maybe into the early start of next year. I think that's extremely likely, given especially how much the rest of the crypto space has pumped over the last several weeks. So like we said, not calling for a top just yet, but we do know that when we do see very nice candles to the upside like this, it's very nice and very strong, but also that does likely mean a little bit of a pullback and correction, setting a higher low. So that's still a good sign, but just know that that is possible and likely that we do need to retrace some. And especially for given how much Chainlink has actually rallied since we did have our bottom. So for example, at the September candle to the current, we're looking at over 150% gain here. And so without any sort of major retracement and pullback, that's actually something that we're going to need to see here. And so if we flip on over into the daily, we can kind of highlight this just a little bit better, just how explosive we have seen without any sort of significant retracement. So even looking at the middle of October to the current price, still over 100% gain in about 3 weeks or so. So even if we do pull up a Fibonacci retracement from that point of the low up to the high, then even a retracement down to the 38.2 very likely would also confirm this previous point of high before exploding to the top here. Would be a very nice point to pull back to, but even from current price levels, that would still be a pullback of about 20-ish% or so, just shy of that. And that's assuming also we stop at 38.2. If we do, for example, pull back to the 50%, about a 25% pullback. Now, personally, if we look at all of the volume here down below, we know this is an extremely strong move, so it's not necessarily like we're going to see a complete flush unless a lot of bearish catalysts come in, just due to the amount of constant bullish volume on this 3 weeks to the upside. And so that's why we talked about the 38.2, because in the event we do see some type of flag or even a consolidation pennant type, those are going to be the bullish types of formations and setups that we're actually looking for, all along with decreasing bearish volume once we actually do confirm and backtest this previous level of resistance as support. So if we go ahead and look at these exponential moving averages as well, if they do start to continue to run up, that would actually be a very nice point to actually meet up at these exponential moving averages. Because typically, especially when we start to see an air gap on top of the exponential moving averages, especially after only one test and touch, we know that we will be met with another touch here eventually at some point. And so especially with a lot of up overhead resistance for the longer term charts, that is one of the topping signs and signals that we're thinking about to know that we are approaching a big resistance without having a previous pullback. And that's why it does start to be a little bit increasingly more likely. Like we always mentioned though, we're never trying to perfectly call the tops, but just play into realistic and likely scenarios. And that's why that always is something that we have to be mindful and aware of. Now, if we go ahead and flip over into the weekly chart here, I want to talk about volume, because if we talk about volume on the current weekly, you can see so far we are seeing decreasing week over week volume. And mostly that's applicable to the last 3 weeks. And so we do have just over 3 days left about. So we are only halfway through this weekly candle, and we're more than halfway for the volume of previous candles. So if that does maintain constant, we could see a weekly candle that does dwarf the previous week, which would still be a good sign. But it's still likely that we're going to end up smaller and lower than what we did experience on our initial breakout and follow through. And so like we said, very strong resistance coming right around the $15 psychological, just up overhead to about 16 as well, and then even all the way up into effectively the $19 zone. So huge region to basically have prices slow down. And so that's why, especially with the volume decreasing, and that's why it's so important and crucial to keep an eye on it, because if we can get increasing bullish volume, then absolutely the trend is still in favor to meet up higher in this zone. But slowing down, essentially what happens is it's like throwing a piece of metal or something, and essentially it's like throwing it into a pool, and if the velocity can maintain, then it will continue. But if you don't get a lot of continuous momentum behind it, then that's why it will actually slow down. And so the same thing applies with prices when we do get to resistance zones, is that with a lot of resistance, or excuse me, a lot of volume, we can actually power through a lot of that resistance as if the piece of metal was underwater with, for example, a motor or some type of propellant. But if not, it will just start to slow down in momentum until eventually it doesn't have any room left to go. And that's where alternative forces start acting on it, usually in this case with price, usually a pullback. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn off volume here and actually talk about the exponential moving averages on this weekly chart, because this is one of the first times that we've seen a bullish cross. And it has been the first time that we have seen a bullish cross on the EMAs since we had our bearish flip back at the beginning of January in 2022, so almost 2 years ago. And so right now, the fact that we're actually seeing a full bullish formation with the 50 on bottom, 26, and then now 12 on top, this is exactly what we want to see, and also what we talk about when we look at other cryptos in terms of their overall exponential moving averages formation as well. And just like we say, typically what we want to see is after a very big gap, we want to see these start to get extremely close, extremely tight, and then that's where it is super easy to actually be able to confirm support and then flip. And then now we are in path of least resistance heading to the upside. So right now we're going to go ahead and move over to the 4-hour chart, just because we do want to talk about the current setup right now and how we're still very bullish despite having a huge run. But like we mentioned, big volume on bottom means a lot of strength, and that's not going to change and let us see a reversal until we actually get that to slow down. And so that's why we are starting to eye up in the $15 zone for this link target before we even potentially get any sort of signs of slowing down, just because the shorter term volume has been so strong and in favor of the bullish moves. So a lot of big good moves for Chainlink and the Link Marines right now, and would definitely love to hear everyone's thoughts and comments down in the section below. Do love getting back to each and every one of you, or shoot me a message or ping me over on Twitter or X at @coin_trades is the handle over there. That is going to wrap it up for this video on Chainlink, LINK though. Once again, if you haven't done so just yet, hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe if you have not done so just yet, so you can stay updated on all types of content, especially as we do start to enter into a new bullish phase. Definitely a lot of great and fun things to be excited about in the crypto world right now, so make sure to stay tuned. Do appreciate all the continued love and support as always. It does mean so much. Stay safe, take care everyone, and I'll catch you back in the next video.